So now we're going to do a little bit of a demo of Matico. This is still very early in development, but this gives you a flavor of what we're aiming for and kind of some of the capabilities we're building into the system. So you start off with Matico in our server environment here. This is where we can create applications, upload data sets, manage data sets, edit data sets, that kind of thing. We can create APIs from those data sets. We can share them out to other instances of Matico and other users, etc. But today we're going to mostly focus on the app building version, the app building tools within the server. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the data file that Dylan put through GeoDa to create a GeoJSON from, and we're going to build an interactive dashboard to explore that data set. You can imagine this is a data set that's going to be really relevant to things like COVID. It's going to be really relevant to any kind of like public health, inquiry. And so we'll build it out to share with fellow researchers and members of the public who are interested. So there's two ways we can do this. One way is we can come in and grab the dataset. It's on GitHub here. We can download it, save it to disk, put it in here, for example. And then what we can do is upload this into the Matico server. So we go through our datasets here, we click on new dataset. We can come through here and we can say demo data, all files, and upload our health factors dataset here. Let's give it a description. Say it's public because we want people to be able to access it, and upload this into the server. In a couple of seconds, this will appear in our table here, and then we can click through and see the data and see it on a map. This will very soon have the ability to edit the data, query it, etc., and modify the geometries. This is one way we could get the data into the system, but Matico also allows us to just link to data sets online. And this is really useful for when we want to, build a dashboard that's going to like keep up to date with published data somewhere on the internet. So let's go ahead and create ourselves a new application. So in Matico, we just click a new application, and we'll call it something like health outcomes or health factors, probably more likely. A dashboard to explore determinants of health. And we'll make it public again because we want to share it with folks. So confirm, and then we see that the dashboard gets added to our list here, and we can click through to view the dashboard or the application. This is the application. It's pretty boring right now. There's nothing really in here because we haven't added any content to it. So let's go through to the editing interface in Matico to start building out our application. So as you can see here, we see the same application in the middle, but now we have kind of some metadata on the side, and we have our tools for building the app. The mode of developing applications in Matico is very centered around the idea of just kind of changing things and seeing the app update. So this pane in the middle here will always show us kind of what our end users will see in the app. So let's add a page. Matico can have multiple pages, which is really nice. The Matico app can have multiple different pages with multiple different layouts, multiple different content types. For example, we might want to have a second page here, which we can then rename, and maybe we call this something like methodology. Methods. We can give the pages paths, so something like this, and also change the icon. So maybe we change this to info or maybe test, because it's going to show us kind of like the methodology. So we get this nice little flask here. And then what we can do is we can add content to this. So with Matico, most of the texture content we have is in Markdown, which means we can do like rich editing here. So we can do like a header. We can make this the sort of main header, and then we could add in some content here. To kind of give you an idea of what that looks like when it's fleshed out, let's grab some Markdown, just some nonsense text to flesh this out, and we get like a nice little methodology page here, which is great. So that's one way we can do this, and this means that anybody who is in charge of the science or in charge of kind of the text can come in and edit this without having to write any code, knowing anything really about Markdown. They can just come in here and like mess around with this as how they want. We can embed images here, we can embed videos, we can embed lists, we can embed math content as well. And so it's really kind of nice to be able to just allow folks to come in and edit this. Let's go back to our homepage though, and we can think about this as being kind of like our kind of landing page. So let's make this a bit more interesting. So we can have content in here, but we can also have panes, or what we call panes within Matico. And panes are basically anything which can live in the page here and the user can interact with. So, we're going to be wanting to map this data, so let's add a map. Simple as adding a map here. It's in the middle of the page. This is going to be our home page. We want it to be pretty flashy, so let's make that full screen. So let's go from 0, 0, 100, 100. And so we got a full screen map here. Let's also change the base map. This is a little bit bright for my taste, so we'll go to dark base map, which is lovely. And then we have our base map here. Let's also add another pane here. Let's add a text pane, which will be kind of our heading. We'll just call this health factors. And that can just live up here. Dashboard about health factors. So again, we can just move this around. So let's just shift this up to the top. This can be like, our banner heading so that people can sort of know what they're getting into with the app. Let's make this smaller and be a little bit wider. And we can move it to the top right hand corner of the screen. Eventually, we're going to have the ability to kind of just drag and drop these planes around, but for now, we're just kind of editing using the values. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of a scaffold for our application, but we're missing our data, so we don't really added any actual content to this. So what we can do is we can come to our datasets pane here and add our dataset. Now, as we saw before, we uploaded it into Matico, so we could actually just select it from this list and add it in, but let's actually link it to the actual data set that's live here. So we can upload CSVs and GeoJSONs right now. We're going to support shapefiles and a whole bunch of other formats in the future, but for now we've got just CSVs and GeoJSONs. So let's come through and just grab the URL here, and we can add it into our data set. So URL and name, let's call this data set health factors. So that's what it is. Hit create, and what Matico will do is go away, get that data set. We can have a look at all the columns that are there. We can see that it's a polygon-based data set, and that's now available for us to use. So let's go back to our map and edit our map, and let's add in a layer now. So maps can have multiple layers from multiple different data sets. So let's add in one called health factors from the data set itself, and select health factors from our data sets. Click add layer, and we should have our polygons on the map. Now this is a nationwide data set, and so we're a little bit too far zoomed in here. So let's zoom out, and then let's make this the default view for the map. So we can do that by coming through to the view portion here, and we can edit this manually, put a latitude, longitude in, change the zoom, or we can just click set from map, which will grab the current viewport and add it into the application. Right now, though, this is not really showing our data, it's just showing the polygons. So we come through to our layers, edit our layer, and we can change up some of the styling here. So we can change, for example, the line width, just zoom in to see that, using the slider dynamically. We can change the fill color. All this updates in real time, so you get a feel for what your dashboard is going to look like at the end of the day. Let's maybe make the line color black, because we have a dark background here. And then we'll go to data-driven styling for the data, select our column. So let's say something like median household income. That can be our first landing page, because income tends to correlate a lot with health and things. So we can go to our different color panels here. We can change the number of bins we have. We can go to equal interval or quantile bins. Again, this is going to become more sophisticated in the future, but for now, it's just a simple data-driven styling. So there we are. We have a very quick dashboard. This is already giving us some information. So let's see what this would look like to an end user. So we can just open up our app link here, and we see that this is what they get. This is the full application. And we're going to make this a little bit more interesting in a moment, but you can see here already we've built something that can share out, people can use to get everyone. Here we go. So let's see how that works in practice. So if I come in here and change the text here, something like that, you can come through here and it automatically updates in our application. So it's really easy to make changes and have them available for people to see very, very quickly. A little bit long though, so let's give it that again. Great, so this is our hero page. And let's add one more thing to this page. Let's add the ability to hover over one of these counties and see the values that are there. So again, we'll come through to our page here, we'll edit. We're going to add one more text pane. We're going to put it down the bottom right-hand corner here. So we can edit this and get rid rid of the content just now. Put it at, say, 2, and then 2. We'll make it a lot smaller. Maybe a bit white. It's okay, actually. Let's move it up a little bit. There we go. So it's down here. So this is going to be our info pane here. And so how do we get data from the map onto this text pane? Well, this is one of the kind of the nice features of Matico. So every pane we put on the page here, whether it be a map pane or other panes, we'll see in a minute, it's going to register some state variables that we have access to and can refer to within other parts of the application. So as you see here, as I mouse over the map, this hover variable, the new map health factors hover, is able to get a value from there. So you can see here, we get this value coming up. If I click on the map, we get this value here. And you can see that this is all the data that's coming in from our data set, all the columns that are there. And we can refer to that other places. So let's grab the name of this variable from our state here. And we can use that in our text box here. So to click on there, let's add in county. And the way we reference this is we just use a hash and then a curly braces, the name of the variable dot name, which is the variable that's in there. And so as I hover over now, I can see basically the name of the county, and this is coming from the data set that we uploaded. And so this is a really nice way of combining state from different things to give really rich content here. So let's also include one other factor, which will be the median household income. So again, let's go to our state variable here and just look at what that's called, median household income. We'll copy that, go back to our text pane. Instead of name here, we'll just say median household income, and we'll add a little indicator here. $sign. So now we have a hover over that shows us the name of the county and median income. And this will all be easier to do in future. We're going to have an ability to kind of select these from a list rather than having to go and find out the name and type them in. But for now, this gives you the idea of how we can interact with different things on the page pretty easily. So again, to come through to our live page, this is kind of already something that's kind of useful for people, right? They can go in and they can have a look at the median income in different counties in the US, but it's not really about health factors. So let's maybe add in another page. We'll call it page, I don't know, science. Give it a URL here, science. Let's call it, give it an info icon with this nice little light bulb, and we'll get rid of the content. So on this page, let's add 2 maps. So let's add our first map. We'll call it income, say for example. I need to click on here to get to the page. And we're going to put this at 0, 0, height 50, width 100. And let's give it a nice dark base map. And then what we'll do is we'll come back here and we'll add another map that will put, it'll say something like, I don't know, like hospital visits. So what we'll put here. And we'll put that at 0, 50, 100, and 50. So we get a nice double map here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put one variable in one map and another variable in the other map. And we're going to be able to compare them as we move around. But really, kind of what we want to do is have these 2 maps synced up. And so we can do that in here. We can just come through to review. We can say, sync this from other maps. So let's sync it from income, find 2 ways, and start syncing, which is great. So if I come in here now, I move this map around, the other map around as well. And so it's dead easy to kind of have these kind of interactions in Matico because again, both these maps are reporting their location, they're reporting their zoom, and so we can set it up so that they very easily track each other. So this is great. We've got 2 maps now that are in sync. We can do this with multiple maps as well. Let's add their 2 layers in now then. So this is gonna be our hospital visits layer. From our health factors data set, again, we get the data on here. Let's just style it up. So data driven, column, previous hospitals, dark mint, say, and we'll do quantiles. And then on this one, we'll do layers, and then income, which is what we had before, health factors, add layer, this layer, and then add in our data-driven median household income. Perfect. And so let's zoom these out again to get a national view. And what we'll do is we'll just set this from the map. Great. So now we've got these two variables. We can see, the various different values here, and we can potentially start to look at what the correlation is between these different things. So if we zoom in a region here, we can see, what these two variables look like together on the maps. But we may want to do a bit more than that. We may want to have some other visualizations of the data just to get a feel for what those look like. So let's add in some other visualizations here. We've only really added maps in so far, but we have other ones as well. So let's add a histogram for our median income, so we can see kind of what median income looks like. We do that by adding a histogram pane. We select our data source and we select our column. So here we're going to do median household income, and then we can change things up. So we can add in like the number of bins. Let's make that, a lot, so it looks a bit more scientific. Let's match it up a bit more with the color of the map. And then let's place this at 0, say 19, that's a bit too high, 80, we'll bring it down. Let's bring it down here, and then we can make it a bit smaller. And as you see, all this is happening in real time, so we get this nice feedback on where this is gonna look like. Actually, let's put it down at the bottom of the map. I think that's quite nice. So now we can see kind of our histogram distribution and the map distribution of our data, which is really, really nice. We're working on some different charting panes here that are going to be really lovely to use. But let's have a look at that. So we can see here, we've got this nice distribution. This corresponds to what we're seeing on the map as well. But really what we're interested in is the relationship between the two variables. So the previous hospital visits and the median income. So let's add something that shows us relationships. We can add a scatter plot. So let's come in here again. We just select our data source, and then we select our X column. So let's make that the median household income, and our Y column, we can make that our previous hospitals visits. We get this nice scatter plot. Again, we can change the dot size in here. We can change the dot color to be whatever we want. We get a nice purple. Eventually, we'll have the ability to make this data driven as well, so that we can have the dots correspond to the same colors as the map. But for now, we're just got some colors. And let's just move this to, again, the edge here. Move it down a little bit. Let's make it a little bit smaller in general. And so we've kind of got this really nice application now that we can share out and people can start seeing and interacting with the data. So again, if we come through to our live map, we go to the science page, then we should see all of our lovely charts and dashboards on the view here. Everything currently is kind of responsive, so these things all stretch. We're going to change that up so that we can, you can specify whether this is responsive or not as we go forward. But already we've kind of got an interesting way of sharing out our data. We've got our nice, selector page, we have our methodology page, and we have our science page to look at the correlations between these things. But let's take this one step further. Let's try and add in some more interaction here. Now, we currently don't have a user interface to do this, so we have to kind of edit the specification for the application directly. So in Matico, when we're editing an application like this, all really it's doing under the hood is writing out a specification that looks like this. So as we add things in here, it's basically adding to this large JSON structure that then tells the application how to build itself. And this is actually hooked up live as well. So if we look at our scatter plot here and we change the dot size, make it ridiculously large, say, this updates from real time too. So this is kind of what's been driven under the hood. This links into the user interface that we have, but everything can be edited just by editing this the specification here. And if we go to our histogram here and look at the data set entry for it, the data that's powering the histogram, we can see that we have this filters entry that's null. And so what we can do there is we can set up a filter to filter the histogram based upon different values. So I'm just going to grab the text here from our data set. So let's add this in. So let's, first of all, let's do a very simple one where we just filter by an absolute maximum range. So in this case, we're going to filter the variable median household income, and let's just say we're going to make the min 0 and the max, say 100,000. If we grab this and copy and paste it in, I'm copying and pasting this in just so that I don't mess it up. No, obviously, I still did that. Filters here has to be an array. So let's just put this in here. Then you can see that the histogram changed there. So basically what we're doing now is we're telling the application to filter by these two numbers. So we can make it like a bit more, a bit less. Let's see, for this, there's no data. 100,000 gives us this. We could make that 1,100, exactly, etc. And so it gives us kind of this histogram here. So maybe we could like set a minimum at 30,000. And this is already kind of useful. We kind of like can tweak our histogram to show kind of like the range here as we kind of want to. But what we can also do is we can also tie this to a variable like we saw before. So if we come back through to our state pane here, we can see that what's happening if we make a little selection here is that these two variables that this pane is reporting now, there's many more here than we saw before, the previous hospital rate and the minimum rate here are exposed as variables within our application. So if I grab this guy, there's a value of min and max, which is corresponding to the selection I've made here in the scatter plot. I can bring that into the specification and tell the filtering to use that filter. So let's go to min now. Instead of the value, what we're going to do is we're going to say var for variable, and then range dot min. And that will use the minimum value from the scatter plot. And we can also add in the max here, max. And then what happens is, as I filter different areas here, our histogram filters as well. So we can use this to create really nice tight interaction between the scatter plot and the histogram. There's a little bug here where this should also be dynamically changing the range, but that's fine. We can do that there. So let's grab this filter and also apply it to our maps. So this doesn't just apply to our charts, this applies to our maps as well. So we find where our maps are specified within the system here. So map here, hospital visits, income. We can see that our data here is going to be within our layers. So here, layer, hospital visits, source, name, filters. Let's create a filter there. And you can see as we edit the spec, we get like a little bit of feedback as to when things are wrong. But here, so if we just select these counties, we can see that our map updates. We can also apply this to our bottom map as well. Just for time, I won't do that. But again, if we come through to our live dashboard here, give it a second to load up, then we now have this filtering ability available for our users to use. And so really, that's what we wanted to show today. This is kind of an illustration of how the system that we're developing allows us to really rapidly prototype and share out complex data sets with complex interactions with very little or no code. As I said before, the filtering functionality we're going to build a user interface for. A lot of these other things we're going to build a user interface for as well. So ideally, at the end of the day, you should be able to create a really interesting application like this without ever having to write any code or any of that specification. And that's Matico.